Hey, I'm going to take another stab at this multi-dimensional theory of existence, the dimension part. I think I fouled it all up the other day. I know I was tired, but I wanted to make sure you got it the way Doug explains it and not the way I see it. So I've got his book and let's go over it. I first talked about the word God and how the word God comes from an old Germanic word, guden, which meant to invoke or sacrifice. And even before that, there was a word Gheu, Gheu, that was similar to the word God in around 4000 BC, and that meant to pour out a libation. That's the meaning of the word God. So, or Gheu at that time, or Gudan before that. So then the word God took on a meaning with Christian deity. They used it to refer to the God of Christianity as opposed to the pagan deities. And that's where we get the word. It didn't come in the Bible. So there were two criteria that Doug and his partner decided had to be met to explain the universe. One, everything in the universe, everything, all things, everywhere, is made up of information that exists in another time-space relationship, like a computer. So if you were to say, Cindy, where's your business and your bills and your marketing and all that? Well, it exists in that computer. So that's just what we're talking about. So the information to create me and you and everything is in the first dimension. Okay. The information is stored in what Doug calls the Diehold, which is the computer operating system. And he created that word. Okay, so then when the information is transmitted from the first dimension into existence, into the matter world, that's the second dimension. So you've got information, it's transmitted into the second dimension, which is matter. And then the third dimension is when that information actually becomes the matter. So I was a little bit wrong there. So the first dimension is the information itself. And then that information is transmitted through energy waves, frequencies, to the matter world. And then once that matter forms, the information is transmitted into the second dimension, the transmission dimension. And then from the transmission dimension, it goes into the third dimension, which is where the atoms of carbon become matter, or the atoms become carbonized matter. I don't know how to say that right, but you get my point. We can see it and feel it and touch it. So life forms with consciousness are the fourth dimension. And the consciousness of a person exists in the first dimension, right? Because it's information, it's criteria, it's instruction. As a separate domain of information, like a specialized program. Like we have Microsoft Word, but then you can get Adobe to do special things with it. So we call this the soul. So when does life happen? When the information that makes up the soul is transmitted to the coordinates of information that makes up the matter of the physical body. Our physical body is a receptacle of a thought form. So it's almost like a template created by God. So you've got the template there, like Microsoft Word, and you can put in it anything you want in that template area within those boundaries, just like us. So then death would be the separation of the two signals, the soul and the matter. And those who have died and come back to life have reported seeing a tunnel of light, which is exactly what that would be. The theory of multidimensional reality also defines dimensions differently. So traditionally, a dimension would be length, width, depth, right? And time. But multidimensional reality has 8 dimensions. So the first 3 would be the same as traditional, length, width, depth. But the 4th would be a definition of potential that an entity could hold. And potential is information. So the more information a person can hold, or, we grow our muscles, the more you can take responsibility for, the higher the dimension. So the term potential is synonymous with voltage or electromagnetic potential in this dimension. So let me go over it again, because it's not easy, is it? The first dimension is a storage dimension. Time has no meaning. The Diehold is timeless. There's no today and tomorrow. It's information stored. It doesn't change. Even though the Diehold itself, or where we keep the information, is made up of matter, it's in a different time-space relationship. So it's not perceivable by the creation it forms. If it were, we could play with it, right? It's the information contained within it that's timeless, can be repeated. It's there. The second dimension is the transmission dimension. Time still has no relevance because the transmission is instantaneous. The third dimension is the world of inanimate matter, from atoms to mountains. So it's the table, it's the cup, it's the book. And the fourth dimension is the world of ordinary living things like you and me. So a soul then is married to a physical body, even a one-celled animal. The primary quality is that these life forms must physically touch matter to manipulate it. So that's where you have the criteria of the fourth dimension. A fourth dimensional creation would have to touch matter to move it or to manipulate it. The fifth dimension would be an intelligent being which is able to possess more potential than other beings are able to perceive, control, manipulate. They often don't need physical contact. These beings communicate with others by thought without having to physically create emotion or a sound. This type of being would perform much of their interaction through the computer without the need of physical senses. They would have evolved to a higher place and they would have a physical body to care for and maintain. Sixth dimensional beings may not need a body, but they can create one if they want one. They can move objects with their thoughts. Time may not be relevant because they live forever. They're a process in the Diehold without a body to deteriorate. Six-dimensional beings would possess greater potential than the prior two dimensions. They may have the capacity to create three-dimensional objects and take the form of maybe a fourth-dimensional life form. Six-dimensional beings probably perceive all their surroundings and the information from the Diehold and not from the dimension. They don't have to go through the dimension. They get it straight. This doesn't mean they don't need the third and fourth dimensions or the objects. They need them as reference points so they know what to do and what the information is doing in the Diehold. And then the seventh dimension comprises of planets which occupy time and space. They possess huge amounts of energy potential. Obviously, so much frequencies always emanating from them, and so they interact with their space-time surroundings existing for huge lengths of time. They probably can't perceive the building blocks of our matter world because they're so long-term, they can't perceive small chunks of information. And then the eighth dimension is comprised of stars, which in turn create planets. My guys are here. Hold on! Their potential is vastly greater than planets. Stars exist much longer than planets and like planets, and they probably cannot perceive the building blocks of our matter because they can't perceive short periods of time. Hope that helps. Now we can move on better.